Hey, welcome to our question and answer, our Thursday discussion, where hopefully I can answer most questions that are being asked regarding interviewing and resume writing. My name is Tony Martin. I am author of the blog, howtogetthejob.blog. Also, follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, called Hired How to Get the Job, and also Instagram. And my background is I've been an executive recruiter and a staffing and recruiting professional for the greater part of 15 years. And now I love coaching people. I love helping on resumes. And really, I've been able to help a lot of people most recently with this pandemic. Now that we have over 20 million people in unemployment, the market has shifted dramatically from a employer market, or should I should say from a candidate market to an employer market. So please feel free to ask questions on the bottom here while we're chatting for the next 30 minutes or so. Feel free also to email me your questions if you don't want to talk about them live, and we'll go from there. So I wanted to open up with a little lesson today, I guess, on emotional intelligence interviewing and behavioral-based interviewing as we get going, because that seems to be more of the norm. It also seems to be more of a thing that we're all going to have to figure out how to do in this kind of medium versus just doing it on a live face-to-face. It's so much easier to interact with people face-to-face than it is on these platforms. So, but fortunately, the structure for an emotional interview type interview is the same, whether you're doing it online or in an office. And really, there's no real wrong way to answer one of these questions. Now, just so everyone knows, an emotional intelligence question, behavioral-based question, they're always going to be something like, tell me about a time when. Now, the only way you can really answer these questions wrong is to not actually answer the question. And what I mean by that is that if I ask you a specific time you did something, and you say, so tell me about a time you were unfairly criticized. And then you think about it, and you come back and you go, well, usually when I get unfairly criticized, it's about something like this, and this is how I handle that. Now, what you have done is you've avoided the question. You've said what you usually do, not what you actually did. You didn't give me the backstory on what you did and why you did it. You gave me a hypothetical answer. Now, if I give you a hypothetical question of what should you do when you come up to a stoplight and it's yellow, the answer is I should slow down. But if I ask you, on the way to the interview today, when you went through Voss and Clay and you were at the yellow light, what did you actually do? Well, I actually sped up. Well, why'd you speed up? Because it's not actually wrong to speed up, right? There's lots of reasons why you might have sped up. Maybe there was no one in the intersection. Maybe it just turned yellow, and you know for a fact that this is a long yellow, and if you jam on your brakes or if you slow down, then you're going to cause a bigger accident than you would if you just kind of do your job and go on through. So me as an interviewer should know that no matter what you answer to this question, if it's a specific answer, it's not going to be wrong unless the follow-up questions are poor. So first, be specific. Give me a specific circumstance. I always say that the CAR acronym: a circumstance, your action, and the results of those actions. As long as you do that, then chances are you're going to be able to keep control of the story. And truthfully, here's what a lot of people don't realize. People will get so hung up on this initial question of, tell me about a time you acted inappropriately in a meeting, Jennifer. Because Jennifer Laughlin, I guarantee, has acted inappropriately in a meeting. But if she doesn't have a story, then she can't control the interview. And what's naturally going to happen is that you're going to think about a time that you did something wrong, and you're going to get all flustered, and you're not going to want to talk about it, but you need to talk about it because you just talk that you're a human. And you say, look, here's what happened. 3 months ago, I was in this meeting. Here's what I said. And you tell the story, and then you follow up with, and because of it, I actually really aggravated Mike. And when I aggravated Mike, I realized it. And I went to Mike about an hour later, and I said, hey, look, I really didn't mean the way this came across. And you built the bridge back. Now, this lets me as an interview ask you some questions about follow-up. But really, when I asked you the question about what do you do when you come to a yellow light, how'd you act inappropriately, I honestly don't care about your answer in that moment. I don't care if you went through a yellow light or sped, slowed down. I don't care. What I care about is your answers to my follow-up questions. And if I don't ask follow-up questions, I'm a terrible interviewer because I can't learn anything from just you answering one question. Again, let's use the yellow light example. Why'd you speed up through the yellow light? Well, I know that intersection really well. There was a police officer behind me. He put his blue lights on and he needed me to get out of his way. There's lots of context there. But if I just assume you broke the law by speeding through a yellow light, then at the end of the day, I realized that I didn't learn anything. So a good interviewer should ask a lot of context questions. If you don't get asked a lot of context questions or a lot of backstory, then at the end of the day, you need to realize that you're probably not talking to a very good interviewer either. So, but hopefully, the end, circumstance, action, results. That's what you want to focus on when you get these kind of questions. You want to get specific. You want to be prepared for the follow-up questions. And frankly, if you've never done an interview like this, you want to reach out to me because I have a sheet here or 3 sheets here that I created that have about 39 questions from everything from self-awareness, self-control, motivation, flexibility, empathy, integrity, courage. Lots of things that companies will be asking you on, and you want to be prepared to ask those questions. Again, thanks so much for joining me. Feel free, if you have questions, start filtering them in. I did get some questions this week, so I will start with answering those, but I always try to make priority to those questions that are asked live because I feel like it creates a potential for somewhat of a back and forth as well with some follow-up questions. So first question came from Alex in the Woodlands this week, and it was actually interesting. So I'm graduating from college next month and I don't have much experience. What should I focus on in my resume? Now, here's what's funny. I just finished today working on a client's resume and he graduates from college next month. So I feel like I'm actually pretty well versed in this just based on this week's experience. But I was fortunate, and so was that my client's experience. He's been working for the past 3 to 4 years on the side and full-time while he's been going to school. So he has a lot of experience to fall back on. So you don't really have that, I guess, is what you're saying, Alex. So first, focus on your volunteer experience. Often, the bridge to the job you want is through volunteering, okay? It's not just because everybody there is doing what you want to do. If you're volunteering at a soup kitchen, you may not want to work at a soup kitchen. That's not the point. The point is that other professionals are volunteering at that soup kitchen and you build relationships and you build a network and you let people see you from a selfless perspective of giving back to the community as a young kid, as a young person who cares about something bigger than himself. And in today's world, that's somewhat rare. So do that. Volunteer somewhere. And if you do volunteer, put it on your resume. If there is certain volunteer experience that's going to make you more marketable for the job you want, then obviously volunteer in that avenue. If you're the typical college person, you just graduate, you're not quite sure what you want to do yet, don't stress yourself, don't limit yourself. Volunteer wherever you can find some time, and maybe you'll find your inspiration. I actually did a video this week about understanding the problem before you focus on the solution. And I'm going to reference that a couple times today, I think. But make sure you focus on what you want to do, not that just that you need a job. Because all of us professionals who have hired people see once you graduate college, there just seems to be a perpetual 6-month leave, 6-month leave, 3-month leave. There seems to be a lot of job hopping between the moment you graduate and the moment you really figure out what you want to do. And at some point, companies kind of get wise to that, and you can kind of hurt yourself from being marketable. My wife is the exception. My wife graduated Baylor University, and she's been with the same company, I think 13 or 14 years now, and she worked all the way up to being the VP of HR for that company. So she is the rare exception, but most people kind of bounce around. So first, do some volunteering and put that on your resume. Second, if you got some clubs, some social, some school clubs you're part of, make sure that you actually put that on your resume, okay? Make sure that you, if you're a leader, if you're president, the treasurer of something, focus on accomplishments. If your sorority or fraternity does a charity fundraiser every year, put the project management experience you did by putting that fundraiser. How many funds did you raise? Stuff like that is really going to help you bridge the gap from being someone with no experience to starting to round out your resume. This is really critical. Okay, this has nothing to do with your resume. This is for everybody. Monitor your social media. Okay. Make sure that you have appropriate things on your Facebook page, because the first thing a guy like me is going to do is we're going to go to your Facebook, we're going to go to your LinkedIn first. And then we're going to say, okay, does this make sense? And if it makes sense, great, we move on. We then go to your Facebook page because we're nosy and we want to go look at your Facebook page. So we go to your Facebook page. And when we go to your Facebook page, are we going to see you chugging beers and doing a bunch of party stuff? Or are we going to see you volunteering in a soup kitchen. What are we going to see? So I kind of whitewash your social media, make all your social media private that people can't necessarily see it unless they're connected with you first. Unless you have a phenomenal Facebook page, which does highlight those viewpoints and that great background that you have. And then at that point, by all means, let everyone look at that Facebook page. But just make sure whatever you're opening to your life, make sure it represents the things you want people to know. And the last thing is actually a funny story too. Email addresses. Get a professional email address. And I don't mean it needs to be at outlook.com. It can be Gmail, it can be Yahoo, but it shouldn't be something inappropriate, which I have seen many. I've worked in the oil field for many years. I've seen many inappropriate email addresses, which are funny, but very easily you could just get a separate email address. So don't have anything rude or crude as part of your email address because that just doesn't represent your brand very well. And just realize that you are selling your brand when you're trying to get a job. Next question came from James in Cyprus. And again, any questions, put them in the comments. I love to get live questions. James in Cyprus asked this week, with thousands of questions someone can ask, how do you best prepare for an interview? So that honestly led me to doing the opening today about the emotional intelligence part. But first of all, you're right. There's a lot of questions that can be asked. I would love to chat with you, James, for just 5 minutes. I'll ask you a couple of tough questions, see how you do. And then if it warrants spending more time together, then we can do that in a mock interview fashion. And if it doesn't, then I'll be completely honest with you as well and say, I think you got this. And I'm always willing to give out free pointers and tips because I just want to help people. So that's the first thing. To prepare for an interview, look at your resume, okay? When you look at your resume, there are going to be things that are naturally going to yield a question from somebody like me. For example, let's say you had a date gap from 2005 to 2009. That's probably going to be asked a question about that. I've had multiple candidates ask me, or clients, when I've asked them, hey, what were you doing from, I had it last week actually, what were you doing from, it was like 1999 to 2007? And the answer I got was, well, I had a job kind of here, but it didn't really work out very well. I did this. And I mean, I am actually telling you exactly what he said. It was like a 15-second answer. Oh, for 7 years of a life that was missing on a resume. He was not prepared at all for that question. You have to realize that the gaps on your resume are going to be natural questions for people like me. So be aware of them. If you're not going to address them in the cover letter, be sure as heck ready to address them in an interview because they're going to come up. That's what happened for this guy. And then also, for example, maybe you live in, like my client who I was working with this week, he lives in College Station. The first job he's going to apply to is here in Houston. I would make sure that either A, I change my address, and I didn't tell him this, and I'm going to email him this afterwards, but change his address on that resume to be Houston, Texas, because that's going to be a question for a recruiter. This guy lives in College Station. Does he really want to move to Houston? Probably does. I mean, he had a Houston phone number, but realize there's a lot of questions that need to be asked on the front end of the interview, and often you're the one that's creating those questions by how you present your resume. So you can really guide the resume a lot. The other thing is you're always going to get the question, tell me about yourself. When you get the question, tell me about yourself, it is not an opportunity for you to talk about your life for the past 20 years and everything you've done for your whole life. We don't care, honestly. When I ask you, if you're interviewing for an operations manager job, and I ask you to tell me about yourself, I want you to go over your experience for the last 20 years about being an operations manager and why this role is a fit for you. If you don't have any experience that talks about that, we'll get some, because that's really the purpose of the tell me about yourself question. Or keep your answer pretty short, okay? We don't need to hear, I have 4 dogs and a pug and a squirrel, and I'm really passionate about fishing and hunting and raising my kids. That's great, but that does not qualify you for this job, and you've just taken some time out of some valuable information you could have shared. So stick to that. And you're going to want to walk through your resume when you do tell me about yourself. But again, you're going to want to walk through your resume in a way that's relevant for the job you're applying for. If you're applying for an accounting job and 7 years ago you did procurement for 2 months or for 2 years, skip over the procurement job, or simply say, and I did this job in procurement for a couple of years, but I really determined that I love numbers. And I quickly realized that I wanted to go back into accounting, and when the time was right, I made the move, or something like that. But glaze over it, but don't focus on it. So focus on what's relevant. Here's something that came out last week in one of my mock interviews. Find your yes. Okay, don't stumble to get to your yes. If I'm asking you a question about something, and it's a very simple yes or no question, are you willing to relocate to Houston? Well, I have some family. I was raised in Houston a while ago. I used to come there. I got some friends there. Yeah, I'd be open to it. Do it the backwards. Yes, absolutely, I'm open to moving to Houston. Actually, I have friends and family there, and blah, 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 blah. Start with yes. Lead with yes. Lead with no. Lead with the answer and then give the supplemental information on the back end. Don't lead with the question. Don't lead with, where's this person going? Lead with the definitive answer. Tim in Dallas asked, I am a Christian and a volunteer at my church. Should I put that experience on my resume? Now, this was a really tough question, Tim, because I am a strong Christian. Anyone that knows me knows that I do not shy away from conversations about my faith. However, I worked on a resume, it was 2 or 3 months ago, and the woman was actually a surrogate mother holding twins. And we both decided, let's put it on your resume, but make sure that when you're applying to a company, if you don't distinctly know that they're a company that would value that viewpoint, I would remove it. But at least by doing it, we built it in there so she could easily just copy and paste it and keep it there when it's relevant. But it's really important that when it comes to that sort of stuff, you know the culture to which you're applying, okay? So if you know the company is, because you can go to their press releases, you can go to their About Us page, you can go to their LinkedIn, you can go to their social media and see where they're volunteering at, what are they doing? If you can tell that your viewpoint is going to be appreciated in that culture, then I'd probably be more open to it. But even something like that, it's kind of tough because truthfully too, you're making sometimes the interviewer who may not share the company's viewpoint some reason to be concerned because, maybe this person's a fanatical, because it is weird to do some of that stuff. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying I wouldn't do it. But in some respects, it is kind of it is different. And you might raise a red flag of someone that might think that you're going to be not a troublemaker, but maybe a Bible thumper. And I say that as someone that loves Jesus. So hopefully there's no offense taken there, but that's kind of my thoughts on it. Certainly ask somebody else, see what they think. But that's kind of my thoughts. Danielle in Hawaii asked, if you are applying to a company that you don't have a network with, how do you get your resume noticed? Now this speaks exactly, Danielle, to my last article on my blog, howtogetthejob.blog. It's called Cold Calling Your Resume. And there's a lot of steps in there that you can do. The first thing is that when you apply somewhere, there's always an opportunity to see the age of the requisition. Well, not always, often. If you go to Indeed, on LinkedIn, usually they'll say this requisition is 24 hours old, or this post is 2 weeks old. So that does kind of dictate the steps you should take and how aggressive you should be on trying to build a network in advance of applying to the job, or maybe the job is only 24 hours old or just posted today. And frankly, if you're doing a good job of looking for a job, you should know which ones are new, because you should be doing it part of your daily routine. You should be going online, checking your normal job boards, looking at your normal social media stuff, and trying to make sure that you are the first person to apply. But ultimately, your question is you don't have a network there. You make a network there, okay? You apply to the job. You can do this before or after. Apply to the job, make sure you know the requisition number, make sure you know what the job is, make sure you know all that stuff. Then go to LinkedIn and say, all right, who is in the value chain? If I am applying to a travel supervisor role, who is the person to report to probably? And they're probably going to be a VP over travel, or maybe they're actually on the supply chain side because this all filters through them. But try to like people in that value chain. Then when you do that, and they connect with you, LinkedIn message them or email them or whatever, but send them a note, connect with them and say, hey, I just applied to, or yesterday I applied to this title, this requisition number. I would really appreciate your expert opinion on my background if you think I'm the right kind of person for it. Something like that. You are not asking them to connect you with the hiring manager. You are not asking them to do anything for you except give your opinion. And guess what? Just like this, people love giving their opinion. I love giving my opinion, hence why I do this. People love doing that. You're stroking their ego. What they're going to do is go, oh, that's so nice. Eric Smith wants me to give my opinion. I would love to give my opinion to Eric Smith because no one asked me my opinion. I go home, no one asked me my opinion. I come to work, no one asked me my opinion. Finally, somebody wants to know because they think I'm valued. Boom, I'm going to give Eric a call or I'm going to type a message back. Eric, I looked at your resume. I think you're a good fit. I think you got some gaps here. Good luck. Oh, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. But often what happens is that then that person you're speaking with, I'll tell you, as a staffing recruiting manager, I can't tell you how many times somebody from my operations team or from my corporate team would hand walk a resume to somebody, to me, just because they reached out to them on LinkedIn. They don't know them at all, but that person on LinkedIn made a good connection to that hiring manager or to that person on my corporate team, and that corporate team person walked the resume over to me and says, hey, can you give this guy a second look? And half the job in this world of ours is to get your resume in front of some human person's eyes. Because in the world of applicant tracking systems and things like that, often it doesn't ever get to a human if you don't have enough keywords and things like that. So do whatever you can. So do that on the social media side. Connect with them. Then feel free to connect with HR. If you don't know the person's email address, connect with a whole bunch of people in HR. Okay, because HR people, we love to connect to people. And guess what? We put our email address nomenclature usually in our LinkedIn profile. So now if you're connected to Tony Martin, you can then see my email address is t.martin@companyname.com. So then you can pretty easily figure out that the hiring manager's name is first initial dot last name or first name dash or whatever. But because of my the way I wrote my email address, you can then figure out the entire company's email structure, and you could probably email whoever you want at that point. But use that sparingly, because I'll tell you too, I've had people where in one day I've had 8 people or 9 people forward me a resume from the same guy because he just blasted the whole company. And depending on how desperate we are for the role, it may or may not go over well. So just be strategic in how you do it. I would say try to go with the people in the value chain of the position, then try to go to HR, and then often use HR's structure for their email addresses to get back to the person in the value chain if they didn't actually accept your LinkedIn invitation. And then, and I'd say you probably want to reach out in 3 to 5 days afterwards. So once you apply, 3 to 5 days later, then feel free to go into their LinkedIn profiles and or then email them from your email account or whatever. But again, make sure you have the right kind of email account. Don't have a ridiculously colorful email account because that won't help you either. But for more succinct information on that, certainly go check out that article, the topmost article on my blog, howtogetthejob.blog. Check that out because that will really probably give you. I actually wrote templates in there, email templates in there that you can just copy and paste as you're building this thing out to meet people. Stephen in Massachusetts, I am up for promotion and my boss asked me, why are you qualified for the next role? What have you done to get ready? I told him I told him many of my accomplishments and the things that I've done. And then he told me that was the wrong answer, that I should have talked about my team and how I'm a team player. What would you have done? The same question. Now, that is a very subjective question, right? Because like I always say, it doesn't matter what my opinion is. It matters what the hiring manager's opinion is. So in this case, sounds like either A, okay, here's the honest truth. It sounds like you weren't the right guy for the job. Sounds like no matter what you said, it wasn't going to be right. Now, if for the past 2 years he's been hammering you that you need to be a team player, you need to build your succession plan, you need to work with people, and you're a lone wolf and that's wrong, well, then that's on you. But if you've had a good relationship with your boss and this is out of left field and he just asked you one day that why you think you're qualified for this role and what you've been doing to get ready, and you answered the wrong way, and then there's always opportunity to come back and talk to him later about it. Hey, yesterday when you brought up this comment and you asked me that question, I didn't quite answer it the way I really wanted to answer it. Sorry. Here's kind of where I'm thinking with it. I was in the middle of my performance appraisal, and to be completely honest with you, I was thinking about all my accomplishments. But I think you can tell by my team and what I've done, I certainly have built up this kind of structure. I certainly have built up a good esprit de corps, if you will, around me of being a team player and stuff like that. But I was a guy, here's my story, okay? I was a senior recruiter at a company. I was there for several years. The opportunity to become the recruiting manager popped up. And if you look at my LinkedIn profile, I haven't been at many companies. You can probably figure this out. But I got passed over. I went through all the interview processes, and in my opinion, I killed it. I had great interviews across the board. But truthfully, they still ended up hiring somebody else for their recruiting manager job. 3 months later, I'm still with the company, and a training manager role pops up. And rather than even interview for it, my VP came to me and says, hey, so-and-so is leaving. Do you want to be the new training manager? And I said, first of all, yes, because I want a new challenge. But how am I any more qualified to be a training manager than I was to be the recruiting manager over here? And what I was told was, truthfully, Tony, you're not. Truthfully, you were qualified to be the recruiting manager. However, I hadn't had a chance to see the leadership that you were displaying until after we hired the new manager. And the fact that you mentored him, the fact that you took him under your wing and helped him, the fact that that you had his back and you defended him, the fact that you did all those things, you displayed to me a level of character that obviously you've already had, but I just never got to witness it. So I guess the point of that story, though, is that when the training manager role popped up, I didn't even interview. I just was given the job and asked, do you want it? When the recruiting manager, even though it was a blow to my ego and I didn't get it, the fact that I didn't get it allowed me to have a bigger succession plan later on because of the character I displayed. So in Stephen, in your case, I would say, honestly, stick it out even if you don't get this role. I don't think you're going to get the role, not because I don't think you deserve it, because I don't really know you very well. But I think, honestly, you're probably going to, if you can display the kind of character that being passed over can show, then there might be bigger opportunities for you down the road. That's a really tough question, though. I'd love to talk to you more and get some more context around it, though, because I feel like that'd be one that's that I can't really just answer in this kind of forum unless there's more follow-ups there. And then Walter in Houston. Even before the pandemic, I applied to many jobs I was the perfect fit for. I'm an electrical engineer, but I never got an interview. What should my resume focus on? So I see this a lot with technical resumes. Technical resumes are very long, often, because you've accomplished a lot, okay? And you've done a lot. And you've worked on very specific projects and very specific things. And as a result, they can get really wordy, really long. So I'm going to say, first of all, I think when you're applying to a job, it's very easy to just keep on building onto your resume, making it longer and longer and longer, because you apply to a job today and it requires 5 years of electrical experience. You acquire a job tomorrow, requires 2 years of hydraulic, 3 years of electrical, 5 years of mechanical, and 2 years of electronics. So you build it onto there, and then you apply to their mechanical job. It doesn't require any of this electronical stuff. But we're lazy human beings, right? So what do? We just take the resume we applied with yesterday, which is all this stuff is not relevant for the job that we're applying to today, and we resubmit it. So now we got a 7-page resume, 6-page resume, a 5-page resume, when really the 3 pages or 2 pages of relevant experience is actually what's going to be more relevant and more impressive to the hiring manager, because they're going to not care about this electrical stuff. And frankly, by showing all that other stuff, you've now made me question as a hiring manager, is he really focused on just being an electrical engineer? Or is he looking at doing everything? Because he's going to get bored in this job if he's used to doing all these other things and now he's just focusing on electrics. So you're creating some doubt there. So I'd say the first thing is make sure that your resume highlights your relevant experience. If your resume isn't long enough, because it's only a page and a half or a page and you have 20 years of experience, then you can broaden it out a little bit more. But I would say first, make sure the experience you have on your resume is relevant to the job you're applying for. Because everything is so personal with resumes, right? It's our life on a piece of paper. If I tell you this is wrong or I don't think this is very impressive, I will hear why it's a really impressive bullet and I should just understand that. But that's not what I'm saying. I might be just saying it's not impressive for what we need you to do. So make sure that you're looking through the lens, you're looking through the resume with the lens of a hiring manager who wants you to do a specific thing. And you need to make sure your resume shows him that you can do that specific thing, but also that you're very passionate about that specific thing. If your resume shows a whole bunch of other experience It doesn't display passion about the specific thing to which you're applying. So that might be part of it. The next thing is focus on accomplishment, not job descriptions. Engineers especially I've seen, are very good at focusing on job description bullets. Okay, you guys think differently. You think in the mind of a mechanic, of a mechanical inclined person. I am not one of these people. But you focus on, I did this system, or I worked on this system. And why that's important to put those key words and those key systems in there, it's really important to put the actual accomplishment. I had a project that was a 6-month project. I was given a $32 million budget. I was able to deliver the project on time, under budget, saving the company $2 million and delivering a product that was superior for my client or something. That's a much better bullet than saying I worked on this system at that company. Because when you read a job descriptions say things like must have 5 years of experience, must have experience working with AutoCAD, must be used to doing invoices, must be an accounts payable person for 3 years. So if you put on your resume, I'm an accounts payable person, that tells me absolutely nothing. It just tells me that you're copy and pasting a job description onto a resume. A resume is not a job description. A resume is not some generic, abstract list of bullets that you're supposed to be responsible for. A resume is supposed to be a list of reasons why you are unbelievable and their accomplishments. They're not requirements. They're not descriptions. They're accomplishments. So think of a resume in terms of accomplishments, and you will be better suited to present yourself to a client or to a company. And that's all the questions I got emailed this week or got put on Instagram. So as always, follow me on Instagram, follow me on Facebook, take a look at LinkedIn, email me your questions, email me your resume. Nowhere's too far. I'll be talking to a gentleman tonight from Thailand, discussing his resume and helping him. So I certainly have a passion for this, and I love answering these kind of questions. So because I like giving advice, I'm just like that guy on the phone when you pick up the phone with your resume and say, "Hey, I applied to this. Can I get your expert advice?" Makes me feel good. So with that, hope everyone's having a good day, staying healthy, staying safe. Hopefully we're going to slowly reopen this economy again and we can all get back to work. But in the meantime, send me your resume, send me your questions, follow me on those places, and I hope you all have a blessed weekend and a good time with your family. Take care. Bye.